Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Haley.
We are back.
We are back. Sometimes I think I wish we did this weekly, just to build up the number of things that people might be interested. But we both got work to do. So,
And I think it's an interesting question or statement because I think that for me at least, that things are changing so quickly on every level. And what's more important is for us to actually choose silence, to have our moments of silence, to have our moments of stillness, to just ground and really be pensive and committed, intentful on what is true and making sure that we're being very clear and honest about our next steps. Because I
that's
think if it's going so fast, it's so easy to be caught up in the chaos. And then with
that's
the contradiction.
yeah, I think that's really good. Uh, I'm at a point right now in my life that I need a retreat.
Mm.
And I've not done it in my life, but I need quiet, almost like going away, but I'm not going to go away because um, my soul feels like, you know, please don't come here looking for anything. I need some water and some fertilizer and some rest and some sun
You're a
because
plant.
I don't have a
Cutting my
lot.
flowers.
I don't have a lot to give. Uh, I do, I do, but I'm just emotionally, physically, and spiritually tired.
Mm-hmm. I
Uh,
think, you know, we all feel that uniquely. We're all entitled to that uniquely. But I do see that that is a trend right now.
it's a what, honey?
A trend.
A
Like
trend?
many people are sort of feeling that physical, emotional, mental, spiritual draining. And that need to just kind of be silent, be still, but in the right way versus being like do that grounded versus doing it ungrounded where you're doing it from a place of panic. Because I see that across the board with all of the people that like I follow on Instagram, my clients, my friends, my mentors are all just kind of being like this. It's just too much. It's too
Mm,
loud. There's too much shouting. And it's so easy to get caught up in it. And once you're caught up in it, it's so fast. Like
yeah,
you're already in sort of a high state of stress and your blood pressure shooting up before you realize, like, wait a minute, where did I go? How did this happen so quickly?
yeah. We are in sort of a tornado
Mm-hmm.
uh, politically here, at least in the U.S., and I think it impacts the whole world. Uh, that's Haley. That's not what's tiring me. I feel very strongly we've gotten through worse than this. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we got through AIDS. Don't tell me AIDS was less stressful than, you know, Donald Trump and all he's doing. And as soon as he is outnumbered in the House or the Senate, he'll lose all his power. But mine is more that um, when it's time to write something, I struggle with what to say. That I feel like I've said it uh, in different ways over 50 years, and I'm not sure how to if people are tired of it. Um, what is my contribution? I feel good about what I've done. I don't, I feel really good about what I've done, but what's next? Uh, I'm not going to go to sleep. I'm not going to go sit in a chair and read for 10 years if I
Well,
have
that
them.
sounds fantastic.
Does it to you?
Reading with a good book and a good cup of tea.
Yeah. I like the interaction that I have with people who read things that I say. I like reading too. I mean, I've especially things that are totally senseless. They're just yeah, people ask you, what are you reading? And you want to say this new book that everyone's reading that is so right on, but that's not what I'm reading. Uh, I'm reading man-on-man romance novels, and I don't hesitate to say that, It's like watching silly TV or, you know,
I think
getting
it's really important that in this time, and I think that, the crux of the question here is, can you be replaced, or is there a place for you? And I think, I don't think we can be replaced. And I think that there is always a place for us, regardless of what it looks like outside. Because we've said this a couple times before, that we're so unaware of our impact. We're so unaware of sort of the tentacles of our impact.
yeah,
I think that we're unaware of that because some of us have a high level of humility where we literally ask the question, is there a place for me?
right.
But I think, with that comes the very obvious humility and the very obvious truth of, who are you and what is your message? What is your contribution? And, I think the reason why you and I are friends is because we're very similarly aligned in sort of those values. It's truth, it's honesty, it's consistency,
Yeah,
it's life, real life. There's the Instagram life and then there's real life.
yeah,
And it's, when you focus on that, and I think that is a lot of the hero's journey, those words align with the hero's journey. When you focus on that, you are going left when everybody's going right. And, there are moments where you kind of you kind of sit down on the ground and you're just like, wait a minute, did I choose the right path? Am I on the right path, or should I be looking at where the right is going and not like using those in political terms, using them solely in directional terms? We have to look at them and be like, if everybody's going that way, did I miss something? Did I
mm,
not get the memo? So I think we need these moments to be reflective, to be pensive, to really sort of ground back into that truth of, who am I? What do I want my contribution to be, and realign with that? Most of the people that follow you and most of the people that I work with, they work with me because I'm consistent. They work with me because it's going to be the truth.
mm,
They work with me because even if it is the truth, I'm going to try and break it in the kindest way possible.
mm-hmm.
And when we look at the people that we actually do influence, that we actually do impact, that fills our heart.
It feels what? It feels what?
The heart.
The heart.
And we can so easily drain the heart by looking outside and being like, there's only 5 people that I'm impacting over here. There's 8 billion over here. Why can't I tap into that? I don't think we're designed to tap into that, because that is lacking a whole lot of truth. It's lacking a whole lot of consistency.
You hear the dog?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Sorry.
He agrees.
Yeah, he agrees. Uh, uh, you used a term that we haven't used in a while, which is the hero's journey, and it reminds me that I'm still on it, and the journey's not over.
You're still on the journey, and it's still ongoing.
And there are things to learn yet that I've yet to learn. There.
And that the whole point of the hero's journey is to know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing yourself, you know God, or whatever you want to call that, God, the universe, Allah, same thing for me. In knowing yourself, you know God. That is the hero's journey. And I think sometimes, when things are moving so fast outside of us, it's so easy to get caught up in it. And it's so easy to just I'm speaking from my own experience, to be literally stuck to my phone because what's the next thing that's going to break? And what am I going to do about that?
Well, your role is
Overwhelming.
you don't know what to expect with each call that comes in,
No.
and they're looking to you for guidance. right? I can put it out there in a Facebook post or a column, uh, but no one's asking me for that. They're basically responding or not responding, and I have to be the thing that I have to do, Haley, is to prepare myself that something that I think is brilliant and really worth reading uh, isn't read. It's read by,
It's such a
20,
weird paradox.
20 people, you
I
know.
have I have exactly the same where I will be like, oh my God, this has to be shared. And not one person will interact with it. It'll just be like swiped. And I'm like, how did I feel so powerful about that? Nobody else. For me, when I sit with that and meditate on that, that's a message from God for me.
Yes, and maybe there are only 20 people who understand it, you know,
And
and
maybe in 5 years' time, you'll reshare it and everybody else will be like, oh my God, I get it
mhm,
now.
uh-huh.
And I think that's, coming back to, the hero's journey and why are we doing this? And there's keywords that come into it: consistency, truth. It's remembering that on the hero's journey, you are a pillar of those things. And it's not if other people are asking you, it's if your soul, if that light, if God is asking you to do it.
Well, the messenger is the message. I mean, I really like that phrase that I've used for a long time because people are looking at you not so much for what you're saying, but for who you are and how you role model
Mm-hmm.
uh, inner peace and complete love and uh, a connection with the divine. You're divine,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in touch with that, and you're giving it the ability to manifest itself. See, I feel like I'm spending some time thinking after reading that we are all God. Uh, but one of the challenges is not just saying it and accepting it, but practicing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're afraid of trying for miracles. We're afraid of laying on hands. We're afraid of, trying to calm the sea. I mean, there is power in us, uh, which is not, and not in you, just you and me. It's in everybody.
Everybody. And I think that this fear isn't just something that came recently. This fear has been something that has been around for centuries.
The fear of one's own power.
Yeah. And this guilt about using power or not using power. And I think that is part of the hero's journey, is finding the courage to actually say, I am powerful and I manifest my power for not only the good of me, but naturally the benefit of everybody else. I think that's the hero's journey. And I think every iteration of the hero's journey is us, again, knowing ourselves more so that we come more into that power. We get more comfortable with that power. We get more comfortable with how we use it and what happens when we use it.
Uh-huh. And how uh, and how not to take it personally if it's not responded to,
Which
right?
really is just outside validation,
Uh-huh.
which when we come to think and review our hero's journey, one of the very early lessons was let go of outside validation.
You
It's
know,
just a
I
very tricky lesson that like pops
uh,
up and you're like, oh, that again.
Haley, that was one of my key messages to these. I just did a 90-minute presentation with future sex educators and counselors, therapists. My message was one, really love yourself. Don't look for outside affirmation because it's transitory. I mean, it's there, not there. Uh, and don't be afraid to be unique. Don't let others dictate who you are, because if you do that, you'll never make a difference in the world. you'll never touch the number of people that you have the potential to touch if you're in a group and you're afraid to do anything that would upset the group. Be very careful. In my life, being outside the group
Mm-hmm.
has enabled me, never an executive director of an organization. So, never on boards, except years ago. Uh, and and that's good because uh, I probably get kicked off them pretty quickly.
Or you would have to give up a part of you to continue agreeing with the rest of the people in that group.
Well, that's why I get kicked off because
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't give up part of me.
Right.
If I'm sitting there with people, it's my time. I don't have lots of it. You're going to hear directly from me what I feel. And I'm going to not just tell you, but I'm going to try to convince you. And if I feel like you're all heading in the wrong direction, I'm not going to run over the cliff with you,
No. And
because there are too many people back here who are waiting to be nurtured and helped, guided, mentored.
this reminds me of a picture of research and data. And there's always, the bulk of the data is always clustered. And then there's a few outliers above and a few outliers around. The outliers are never clustered. They're never part of the cluster. And they're never really researched because people are always focused on what's going on with that cluster, the generic cluster. But ultimately, it is the outliers, and it is those few people that research the outliers and look at what's happening there that actually moves that cluster a little bit higher or moves it along. So likewise, if you're looking at sort of the lower clusters and you focus on what they're doing and you highlight what they're doing, it also drags down that cluster.
Uh-huh.
So I
We
think it's, the
we need
rules of the universe is that there are always outliers, and the outliers drag the cluster one way or another.
uh-huh.
And I think that's where we have to accept where we are on that picture.
And the outliers, using your example, are looking for help and
Mm-hmm.
direction. And one of the challenges that we face, and people all over our country are horrified. They thought, oh yeah, he's a clown. He won't do much damage. He'll be gone. Within 100 days, he destroyed, the United States government. He's taking it apart piece by piece by piece, uh, which Republicans, are all for the
And
dismantling.
Democrats. And Democrats. A lot of Democrats are voting with him.
No, no, right, but for different reasons. I
Mm-hmm.
think if the Republican standard bearer is that the federal government is not in its purpose is not to be a safety net, right? People need to take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They have to pull up their own bootstraps. Well, that's easy to say when you're a millionaire. Uh, but but so while this is going on, and you have people terrified because the cluster is being pulled in this direction, that's what we need to do is be on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
pulling against that, saying, don't give into it. It's not true. You're not going to die. You have people who say they're exhausted, they don't know what to do. I understand that,
Mm-hmm.
but there is stuff for you to do, even if it's just talking to your kids,
Mm-hmm.
you know, talking to your neighbors. Um, I don't disagree. The whole Republican Democratic thing is getting very confused. The Democratic Party seems to be going in different directions and hasn't found its identity. It's struggling to get its identity. And there are slowly an increasing number of Republicans who are saying, I'm not sure this is the right
Mhm.
direction, which I'm grateful for. They're the hero, um, standing against, this huge tidal wave. Those are the profiles in courage.
Mhm.
Did you ever read that book, John Kennedy's book, Profiles in Courage?
Mm-mm. No.
He talks about people throughout history, usually in the political world, um, who did something totally against their own interests. They stood up, they said no, or they said yes,
Mhm.
and they lost everything as a result.
Mhm.
And that's a profile in courage.
Mhm.
Elizabeth Cheney is a Republican example of that. Standing up and saying, this guy's crazy, he's wrong, he's a clown. I'm a Republican, I'm a woman, listen to me. And as a result, death threats and people going after her, the federal government going after her. But going back to the cluster, we need people on one side saying, I'm not saying what you're being pulled towards isn't a force, but we have another force on this side, which you were
Exactly.
on, which you were on before pretty clearly, and there was less confusion. We don't need to get sucked into this. We can continue to stand strong, right? Even if we need a retreat, retreat doesn't mean 10 years.
No.
Retreat, it can mean 2 months, right? That you don't write a column, uh, and you're taking care of yourself.
Absolutely. I think that's the most important thing is to take care of yourself, is to, for me, the word is take care of yourself so you're not the contradiction.
And say that I know that that's one of your favorite phrases because you don't want to be. So does that mean you're saying one thing but you're doing another?
Right. If I'm telling people to take care of themselves and I'm not actually taking care of myself, that's a contradiction.
Good for you.
If
That's
I'm
right.
telling people to focus on the truth and be curious, seek the truth, and I'm just getting caught up in whatever is on Threads or on Instagram, I am a
Hmm.
contradiction. If
And
I'm
so,
telling people to meditate and to breathe, yeah, every moment that I get, I'm on my phone, I'm the contradiction.
uh-huh.
And I
How
think
do
that's how contradictions get so much bigger because we get so comfortable being a contradiction. We make excuses for it.
Yeah, like we know better, you know, we're telling people inspired thoughts, but we can't take a break because well, we're too inspired.
Yeah, or I feel like I have to do this. No,
Right, the
no, like
world,
take a humility pill, you don't.
yeah, the world is on my shoulder. Tell me how you take care of yourself.
I am very focused on breathing right now and paying attention to my heart rate. And I don't have any devices to take care of my heart rate. I basically just see how I feel. So anytime that I am wanting to get on my phone, I purposely use that as a moment to breathe and to look outside onto nature, like look far away, not just in my garden, but actually find a mountain, find something out there that is beautiful. And it's nature. So I'm doing that more. I'm also making sure that I'm forcing myself to be present in a moment of gratitude. Not just let me be present, but to really push and put that effort into I'm grateful that I can have a cup of tea right now, or I can have a glass of water, and I can actually, if I allow myself, I can actually be in peace. There's nothing going on immediately around me that is terrible.
Yeah,
It's worth my worry.
swimming gives me a moment of peace because I'm not answering emails.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, One of my faults is that I keep thinking if I just get this done, I'll be clear. The deck will be clear. I don't have to do anything more. And then 2 seconds later, somebody wants to talk on the phone or meet for coffee, or I have this problem, you know, and I think, okay, yeah, I'll answer all of this, and then I'm free. Nope, you're not. Because somebody's knocking at the door, the dog's barking.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get up from what you're doing, take care of that. You left the towels in the dryer, they need folding. The dog's dish needs washing. There's never an end to what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. And this is just in your house.
That's in my house, but also in my computer,
Mm-hmm.
right? In terms of things popping up. Uh, and I feel like, okay, I can't leave this. Yes, I can leave it. They're not expecting an immediate response. You know,
But I
give,
think, what I try to do, because I have a mind like that too, where I'm just like, if something needs me, I just feel happier doing it, whether it's making the bed or sweeping or whatever it is. I'm now trying to be more present with that and turning that into a moment of gratitude. How
uh-huh,
grateful that I can make my bed and I'm not in an office, because I'm very grateful for that. I'm not like in a cubicle and in that situation, because I've been in that situation. I have a very clear comparison. How grateful am I that I get to sweep my house? Like, I'm not sweeping somebody else's, it's mine. Right? So that is part of me taking care of myself, is to turn these mundane things, rather than into sort of a punishment or I have to do this, into how lucky am I to be doing this?
uh-huh.
I'm working on that, because there's still the taxes that I have to do. And that is always a huge task for me to turn it into something grateful and happy. Learning. But with most
Yeah,
other things, it's much easier for me now to turn it into how lucky am I that I'm cleaning the drain? Like, I get to clean my drain so that I can enjoy it.
right,
And it's not
right.
all of my stuff going into that drain, which could potentially block the drain. And other people would, the pipe could burst and other people would suffer from that.
One of the things I'm grateful for is that you are experiencing these insights at your age, because a lot of what feel, your wisdom is often something that comes to people, as they get older, when they have more time to think and
Mm-hmm.
reflect, and they've had more life experience. They have a history to know what they can get through, and you've got it now. Whether you've got total control of it is another thing, but at least you're aware of it.
Mm-hmm. And
Uh,
I made the choice to live like that.
mhm. You did. You
I
did.
made
You left
the
Wall.
choice to, I want to be more present. I want to experience that kind of life.
You left Wall Street,
Mm-hmm.
and you left a steady income, uh, and status, right?
Influence,
Influence.
all
I
of
mean,
it.
you have influence, but it's
Very different.
over a certain number of people's lives,
It's
and
certainly
all.
not, an entire region and in Europe anymore. It's just a few people here and there.
And I think that's where our focus needs to
Mhm.
be.
That's my
Uh,
place now. And I think
yeah,
that's still your place. And it's interesting that you say that it makes you happy to see me have these awarenesses. My clients that are now 23, I've had them since they were 19, 18, 19. I have the same thoughts about them too. They're having
well,
the same questions that they are actually at 23, making concerted effort now to live that kind of life.
because you're there to guide them.
I'm there to guide them. I think it's also incredible that they're, at 23, I had some questions. I was delving into a few different things, but I wasn't actively participating in it. I wasn't actively searching for it. I wasn't also receiving sort of the active help. But I find it fascinating that these young people at 23 are doing what we're talking about.
Uh-huh.
And that gives me hope because I
Did
think
you?
that,
I was like that
yeah,
at 23. Were you like that at 23? You know, I read a lot of spiritual books at
I was,
23.
I was interested in Buddhism. I was interested in like Islam just because they were things that were so terrible at the time. I was interested in nutrition and diet and understanding, what's in the food system. I was very interested in that and sort of the like why organic and why is organic becoming good. I was interested in that, but I certainly wasn't devoted to it.
Uh-huh.
The seed was growing. My devotion came, I would say, after I was 25, 26. The devotion came. It then got stronger when I was 30. And, when I was 38, that's when I made the decision like 100% devotion.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. 38 and 20, these kids started honestly when they were 18, 19.
And what I would say that what slapped me in the face in terms of needing to wake up and pay attention to myself and my was the Vietnam War,
Mm.
and then the Civil Rights Movement, and then my own movement.
And that
The
was
game.
scary, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I grew up really fast, uh,
You
because
know,
I
how
was
would you
arguing.
rate the scariness of that versus now?
It was much scarier than it is now. Much scarier because I was by myself. My
Mhm.
father, everything I did, my father opposed. He threatened me with everything I did. The Vietnam War, conscientious objector, the gay thing. I mean, they loved me as a gay person, gay son, but all this publicity, and I was, I didn't have a lot of family members saying, "Go, go, go," good for you, or cousins, or friends even who were straight. So it was Haley. It was a time that required. I mean, it was an exciting time. It's ridiculous to not say that because you were making a difference. You just
Mhm.
saw it. You know, you were out doing TV and radio and newspaper interviews right and left, and you're only what 24, 25, 26. Uh, so you think, oh, you know, so you didn't have, you know, the luxury of going to Europe and doing a year in
Mhm.
Europe. That just wasn't a possibility, at least for me. Uh, but I'm not sure I even thought about that as if something that I'd want. But right now I'm not afraid. Uh, I've had a full, happy life, and so if something bad happens to me because of my resistance to Trump, and what he's all the people he's assigned tasks to. If something bad happens to me, my only worry would be Ray, you know?
I think that's one of the sweetness, well, not the sweetness, but the sweet things about being on the path is that as you see that outside validation sort of dispersing and dissolving, you become more courageous
Real,
and you
yeah,
become more honest with what really is the threat here. What really is the threat on my life here? Am I okay being torn down for what I believe in? Yeah, because it's happened before and I was okay. It wasn't comfortable, but you're still okay. And I think we have to remember that the only real violence that we can do or that can be done to us is the violence we do to ourselves, how we think about things.
yeah. How and whether we allow others to do violence to us,
Mhm.
which they're eager to do.
They're eager to do, and I think it's, I don't, I understand that this is a scary time, but in the history of the world, there have been scary times too.
Yes.
And there have been these arcs of consciousness, just like I was saying, where the cluster kind of moves. And it's the outliers above that that move it. So this isn't the first time it's happening. It's obviously happening with an enormous amount of technology and an enormous amount of awareness. But I think we're still human in it and we're still experiencing it in a very human way. And I think that we're okay, like many of us, when you say, like, is there a place? There is a place for me because I create that place. I can't be replaced if I created it.
Right. And if you tend to it, if
You're
you
consistent and you're taking care of it and you're nurturing it. You
well,
can't.
you're giving it attention.
Yeah. And I think it's certainly not easy, but I do think that it is still beautiful. And I think that there is still room for hope. And I think that there absolutely is room for us to be pensive, to hermit, so that we can make sure that we're consistent with our values, consistent with our beliefs. And if our beliefs need to change, use that time as a human or hermit to really
Mhm.
align into the truth and to be honest about it too and be like, you know what, I used to think that way. This is
Uh-huh.
what changed my mind, and this is how I evolved into this.
Exactly. I mean, that's one of the reasons I was so happy, publishing my memoir was that I was able to tell everybody who wanted to read it how my spiritual path progressed, from how I, as a child, saw God in the sky to how in my 70s, it's the Holy Spirit, who's guiding my life.
Um,
And Jesus was in there along the way, but so too was Buddha. And Lao Tzu is an
mhm.
important part of my life with the Tao Te Ching. And so the book, at least as far as where I am now, the book said, okay, this was the path that I followed. This is what influenced the path that I followed. The events that happened that influenced the path that I followed. I'm curious, where's the rest of the path going? You
I
know,
don't think we're ever really given that information because then we would, like, what fun would that be? We would just spend every counting minute going, like, when is this going to happen? I'm ready for this to happen. Can I skip that step?
yeah, what happens to me, Haley, is that I sit there and think, okay, you're on a retreat, you know, maybe. Should you be reading Pima Chodron, or should you be
How can
reading
you be a good achiever?
a man-on-man romance novel? And I go to the novel.
You know, this reminds me, I have a wonderful client who is into these, isn't, she's not really into them, but she opened my eyes into this new crave, the new Beanie Baby, which is called the Lubaloo or something like that. And it's
Hmm.
this weird little fluffy thing with big eyes.
Oh,
And, it's obviously started as sort of like, I think more of an anime thing that is now, the kids have the capybaras, the adults have these lulububus, whatever they're called. It's something like that. I don't know. But she bought them and then she sent me a picture and she's like, I bought these because they made me really happy in the minute and now I feel ridiculous. I'm too old for them. And I was just like, I think this is also part of the trend that we're seeing is that we're never too old to embrace that childlike wonder, that childlike
no.
curiosity, and that childlike giggle of just being
Yes.
happily pleased with the most mundane thing. It's okay if you're over it in a week.
Yeah.
But I think we need that because I think is not the right word. I believe that those moments when we have just that little giggle of like, oh, this is so good, that's what ignites the fire, that what feeds the fire beyond that feeds the fire beyond a meditation.
Well, you see all these antique children's toys behind me. They make us giggle when we find them and buy them and put them on the shelf. And at Easter, arrange them in a little village, if they're bunnies pulling eggs. Uh, I'm silly every day. I say
And I
silly
think it's a
things.
ritual. We have to include that in our ritual.
Yeah, and I say silly things to make Ray laugh,
Hmm.
or our friends who are playing cards make them laugh. I love making people laugh, and I love uh, my innocence. That was part of my, in my book I talk about this exercise with August Gold, uh, where I finally decided kept. I think I told you this. I had wrote 12 things I couldn't live without, then I had to cut it down to six, then I had to cut it down to just words, then I had to make a sentence. And one of the things that I could not live without is my innocence.
Mm.
I couldn't because I don't want to be jaded. I don't want to be I want to be, the kid who got so excited at Christmas, waking his
Isn't
brother
that,
up and
I, when we come back to the outliers and the, why is it that there's some outliers above and some outliers below? And I like to call outliers that are above the old souls. And the resilient souls, for some reason, they have a strength of resilience that, to date, I can't explain. I can't explain why an old soul is an old soul and there's a young soul. Like why? I don't know. I think it has something to do with trying to explain who God is because we are not God, so we can't explain God. So I think that part of that resilience, part of that old soul, is again having the courage, to just really explore and celebrate those tiny little things of innocence where you're just like, this just tickles me into a giggle. I love it.
Mhm.
Let me enjoy it. Let me celebrate it.
And what I'm manifesting is God's silliness.
Yeah, like God has a sense of humor.
Well, if we have a sense of humor, God has a sense of
Mm-hmm.
humor. Did Jesus laugh? I mean, he had to have laughed in 33 years, at least once. Somebody had to have said something funny,
Oh, I
right?
think he laughed. I think he would have been a very light-hearted person because I think you
Well,
have to be on this path. You have to have a sense of humor.
and you don't have to have the answers. People will say,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, tell me, who is God and how is God interacting with you?" And I can say, I don't know. At 77, having dedicated, most of my life to it, I don't know. My answer keeps changing. And then stop and say, but what about you? What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
How does God, if you believe in God, we can use another word because it doesn't matter to me. Do you believe there's something beyond you? You know, and if you do, regardless of what you call it, what's your relationship with it? How does it impact your life? And let them talk,
Figure it out.
and then come back and say, so much of what you said I identify with. I've gone to the point where I feel this, which is, a little bit beyond where they're talking, or different than they're talking.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but there are no answers because you can't know God. People have tried since cavemen,
I
they've
agree
tried
with
to
you.
understand.
I agree with you. And I think that's because we are a part of God.
Yes,
You and I and all of this around us makes up God. So a
yes,
part can make the whole, but a part can't be the whole. And I think, one of the things I like to like bring really down to earth is like obviously you and I both like the cooking part. So when you're cooking a meal and taking all of these parts to cook a meal, at the end of the day, that meal is a part of you. It is not you. You can't ask that meal, what is Brian thinking and who is Brian to you?
right. But
Like,
the
because it's just a part of who you are.
yes, and the meal itself is, um, to me, sacred. I'm not talking about peanut butter and jelly, although that is sacred if
At
that's what
times
you're
that is
serve
sacred.
it. But when I present dinner to Ray, uh, I've had I put a lot of love into what I've prepared,
Hmm.
and I'm hoping it's acknowledged because I want to have this awareness, that it's not just a frozen pot pie, you know, that it's something that I sauteed and add, this to and this to and this to, and it took me an hour to create this dish this morning.
That you
Uh,
will eat in 10 minutes.
Pardon me?
That
Not,
will be
yeah.
eaten and finished in like 10 minutes.
Oh my, 10, 5 minutes,
We
right?
often acknowledge that where we're like, because we often cook together and we're like, oh my God, this took us like 2 hours putting this all together and we just finished it in like under 10.
And did we taste it? That's the challenge. Did we taste it? Or are we talking so much about other stuff that we keep eating, we keep eating, and we keep eating, and it's gone?
Yeah.
And you think, are there leftovers? Often it's the next day that you
Yeah.
stop and say,
And it has a
hey,
different taste.
taste this. Stop. Stop. Don't put anything else in your mouth. Just taste what you have in your mouth, right? Because that's the gift of not just you to Ray and to yourself, but that's the gift we're giving the world in that we're participating in the creative nature
Hmm.
of God.
And we have a choice to cook lovely, tasting deliciousness or cook rubbish. And I
Well,
think we have to, taste it. Does it taste good? Do you like it? Great, let's do more of this.
and it's
Yeah, it's terrible. Too much salt, too much fat, or too much
yeah,
oil. We stop doing that. And I think if we can be consistent and use that filter with everything that's outside,
uh-huh.
it will be helpful.
I don't have to
Consume
prepare.
stuff that tastes awful.
Yeah, yeah. What tastes awful to you? Processed food or
No, I can have a processed food. Like, one of the things that is very different between me and my dude is that he comes from a very processed, like, that's his normal kind of food. So with me, we've sort of changed it and it's a lot more healthier. And he's also taught me, we don't cook once a week, we cook every day fresh. So I've learned that from him. But one of the things that he was absolutely craving the other day was bimbo bread with deli ham. And bimbo bread is bread in a packet that you buy at a store. I haven't bought that bread in years. I don't, even when I lived in New York, I didn't buy that bread. I
like
went to a bakery and got fresh bread.
like Wonder Bread?
Yeah, it's Wonder Bread. And he was craving it. He's like, I want this with mayonnaise and my ham. And I'm like, do it. And so he made it. It made him so happy. And then he's like, have a bite. And I had a bite and I was like, this is actually good. It's good for the bite.
It is good. I love
And
that.
so, I don't like processed food. I don't like food that is changed so dynamically from the original. Um, and I don't like a lot of chemicals, which I think falls under that change dynamically. I like fresh food where I can taste the fresh flavors. And if somebody is talented to be able to take natural flavors and blend them together, I find that incredible. That's my joy.
Yeah.
It's not just in food, it's in drinks too, different drinks, different, not just alcohol, it's smoothies, it's tea, it's coffee, it's chocolate. It's everything where my senses can be involved and I can have that sensory experience of like, oh, this is good, this is
And I want to say, if I can, backing up a bit, that somebody who buys a Marie Callender frozen pot pie, right?
good. They're
That can
good.
be they're delicious, and I can. Uh, that's a sacred moment for them.
Mm-hmm.
That they've gone to the trouble of going to the grocery store, walking down the frozen food aisle, making decisions. They pick up something that they think they'll enjoy, or their spouse will enjoy, or their kids would enjoy. That they don't have to make it, right? It's what love goes into it, right? And they
Yeah.
acknowledge that love goes into it. There are a lot of dishes that Trader Joe's has that's frozen food that people rave about,
Mm-hmm.
and they run out of it because it's so popular. Well, that's great. I don't they don't have to cook it. They don't have to start with, chopping garlic and onion and putting it in olive oil and, which I did this morning with chicken. But uh, they don't have to do that. At this point, am still willing to do it,
And
you
I think
know?
you've also created the life where that is part of your daily ritual.
Yeah.
And I think just, coming back to the choices that we've made and being responsible and accountable to those choices means that we get to celebrate too. You know, us cooking, similar to you, us cooking every day, and both of us being a part of that cooking experience is a choice I made. Before I would cook once a week, or I would just be like, I'm going out to eat. That was my choice. Neither one is bad or good, but it's these choices. I understand too how Trader Joe's is so much easier if you're working in an office 9 to 7.
Hmm.
It's just so much easier to take it out the freezer, put it in the pan, and bake it, and in 20 minutes, everything's there for you.
Right.
I get that. I celebrate that. Um,
Uh-huh.
because we all make these choices, and with that come more choices that align with that original choice. Fantastic. I've also owned that I made a choice where every day is fresh meat, every day is
Yeah.
vegetables.
I'll tell you a secret on my life is that I make enough for like 3 meals.
We're
So,
trying.
so that I don't wake up in the morning and think, oh, what in the hell am I going to make today?
We have that too. And you ask that question, how do I take care of myself? Is that fatigue of like, oh my God, what can we possibly cook today? Like, it can't be more chicken. It can't
Yeah.
be more beef.
Well, and that's it. You think, what did I serve yesterday? What did I serve the day before?
Yeah.
I can't serve chicken 6 days a week. You know, I make beef pot pies myself or beef bourguignon. Um, I switch out salmon, whatever,
Yeah.
but that takes a lot of thinking
It's
the
a
night
lot.
the night before because you got to take it out of the freezer.
And we were having moments where like whoever asked the first question, what are we eating today? It was met with like, don't you dare ask that question. And now we've turned it into we like had a chat where like this is getting bad. Like we're both now in this energy of being fully resentful of eating and the food. So now
Oh no.
where we reach a point of like, I don't know what to cook, we're going out.
Yeah,
We are going out and we're eating at a restaurant today.
yeah. It's so expensive.
It's
If you're on
expensive.
a limited budget,
It is expensive. I'm very grateful that here in Mexico there is a lot of economical cooking and
yeah.
a lot of really good like home cooked stuff that you can eat very economically. Um, it's also you can choose to have the expensive things. So for us, it's an opportunity cost of like, right, how much does it cost to be resentful about cooking? How much does it cost to kind of cook and eat in a bad mood because you're so exhausted and you're just like, this isn't really what I wanted, but I'm just eating for nutrition.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's so much cheaper just to go out and pay 200 pesos. Like, one of our favorite restaurants is for the two of us to eat is maybe like 400 pesos. That's $20.
Yeah.
And I'm
And
entirely grateful and well aware that for me, it's economical because I know,
and $20 is a tip here.
yeah,
Uh,
it's
so
it's a beautiful.
if I was in your position, I would be doing the same thing.
I think you would have to take yourself back and be like, we are not eating out again.
You're exactly right.
We've
I
had to
would,
do that a couple times. And I think
yeah,
we are running out of time. But I think when we come back to that question of where is our place is right here and right now. And I think, Brian, your place is doing you. And there's a reason that you're in Florida. There's a reason that you're in this beautiful house. It is meant for you. It is part of your destiny. Just like the reason I'm in Mexico is part of my destiny and not being in Italy. This is part of our destiny, and part of knowing ourselves is accepting the blessing it is to be who we are, to have the knowledge that we have, to have our special talents, to put words together, whether it's written or spoken, and to just be consistent with that. We might not know what it means, but we have to trust that push that says, just keep saying the same thing again and again and again.
In different ways.
In
Yeah.
different ways, it evolves.
Yeah. Right.
And
Right.
just to have the courage to, realize that you might have said something, you might have written something 5 years ago, and you go look at it now and you're like, wow, the core message is the same, but how I said it back then, I would totally change it now.
Yeah.
You write
Yeah.
it and put it out there and be like, this is my learning. This applies to me today.
Yeah. And you put it out, and if people think, oh, I've read this 100 times, that's okay.
You never
Because
know when
there may
the
be
penny's going to drop.
there may be two people who read it and it changes their life.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's going to happen.
I catch myself so many times, and I think this possibly happens to you too, where you will say stuff to people time and time and time again. And then somebody else will say exactly the same thing, and that's what they believe. And it's just like, why them when I've been saying it to you like for 10 years?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
this person out there says it, and suddenly it's the truth.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
It's because everything has its time and place, everything has its vibration. And what you said or what you wrote 5 years ago had its time and place then. There's no rule that says look at it now and see if it can be reworked for its time and place now.
Right. Because the basic message, Haley, for 50 years is loving kindness.
It's consistent. And how
It,
blessed are we to experience loving kindness in reality every single day?
right. Right. You don't even have to say the word loving kindness. You can just tell stories where it's illuminated.
It's, I give thanks for loving kindness every single day. Every
Yeah.
morning, every night, I'm just like, I'm so grateful for the loving kindness that is shown to me in all these different ways. Like for
Yeah.
me, that's success. I'm like, boom, I just hit the jackpot. I received loving kindness today. That's all I wanted to experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we got to stop.
I know we got to stop.
All right. We'll talk next time.
We'll talk next time on that loving kindness message.
Yes.
I'm grateful for you for the loving kindness that you show me each and every time. And I know that you think of me in between our conversations.
I do.
That is loving kindness that I receive. So thank you.
Thank you.
And enjoy your retreat.
I will, and I'll check in 2 weeks, and
We'll be
find
back
out.
in 2 weeks and see what's changed.
Good.
We'll be raring to go.
Bye, my dear.
Love to you. Bye.
Love you.